Welcome to Driven to Drive, where we inspire you to live better and drive better through driver training. We're here today. We're going to be talking about the steps that you need to follow as a beginner and as a new driver that's going to help you get off to the right start and be more confident and also more safer as a driver. Let's go. Hello, this is Daryl Shepard of Driven to Drive. So we want to make sure that you understand what to do as a beginner and as a first-time driver. The first thing you want to do when you get into a car is to make sure your seat is adjusted to a good position. The way you can know if it's in a good position or not is by adjusting the handle that's on the bottom and to make sure that your legs are in the right position. So when you're in an upright position like I'm sitting, you want to be in a position where your hands can reach the steering wheel, and you have your hands at the 10 o'clock and the 2 o'clock position. The next thing, when your hands are up on the wheel, you should have a slight bend in your elbow. So you don't want your arms to be extended out, and you don't want it to be crammed in too tight. So it's important to be at a nice, comfortable position where you can have that bend in your elbow with your hands at the 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock position. We're going to look at this steering wheel as if it was a clock. The next thing is to make sure that your feet are reaching the pedals comfortably. Some of the shorter students, they have to slide the seat up forward like this. But for me, this would be the position that I want to maintain. The next thing is the back part of the seat. You want to make sure that the back part of your seat is adjusted and it should be touching your upper back. It should be a nice, comfortable position and nice and snug when you're in the seated position. From there, the other thing is to put on your seatbelt for safety. In Pennsylvania, it is the law for people to have their seatbelt on before they begin to drive. The next thing is to go over what we call the orientation of the vehicle. So to do that, I'm going to start the engine like this. Okay, next we're going to get into the dashboard of the car. Every car has a dashboard, so you want to get familiar with the instruments and the information that's on the dashboard. So what we do first is we have to understand about the RPMs of the vehicle as well as the engine temperature to make sure the car is warmed up. If it's in a warm setting, it'll be in the middle, and if it was in a bad setting like overheating, then it would swing over to the H. And if it was not working properly, then as you're driving for a considerable amount of time, it will stay on the C. So you just have to make sure it's in the middle to make sure the car is fully warmed up. I usually recommend that people let the car warm up for about 5 to 10 minutes when you start the car for the first time of the day. The next thing is in the middle, which it looks like a watch dial. It's called the speedometer. The speedometer starts with the number 0 at the left in the bottom, and then we have a number 160. So this particular car goes up to 160 miles per hour. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend for a new driver to go 160 miles. So we're going to stay towards the left side of the speedometer, where we go from 0 all the way up to the highest speeds in Pennsylvania, which we have 70 miles per hour as the highest speeds in Pennsylvania. So the first thing you want to understand is that the increments for the speed starts at 0 and it goes up to 5. Then we have 10, 15, 20, and then so on. So you want to pay close attention to your speed, and that's going to be important for you as a new driver. The next thing is at the bottom is the fuel gauge, but we have to make sure that we keep our gas full, because obviously if you run out of gas, you won't be driving very long. So just always pay attention to that as well. The next thing is your turn signals. A lot of students that I train, they need to become familiar with using the turn signals, and I recommend using the turn signal at the appropriate time to make sure that you communicate with other drivers and let them know your intentions, if you're going to be making a right turn or if you're going to be making a left turn. So down, when you pull the handle downward, that would be your left turn signal. When you go to push the handle up to the right, that would indicate the right turn signal. And you want to put your turn signal on 100 feet from where you're going to be turning. I usually recommend the students just make sure that you're looking at the area first that you're going to be turning, and you see that position of where you're going to turn, so that way you can signal early and let people know. The next thing is the headlights. We have 2 settings for the headlights. You have the low beam and then you have the high beam. The low beam is the top setting. There's a little white line on the turn signal stalk, and you rotate up to the very top position. That is called the headlight position, and it's also called the low beam. The low beam is what you use at nighttime, and generally if there's a storm, if you have to use your windshield wipers or anything like that, you can also turn the headlights on in different various situations. So the next feature would be the high beam. The high beam is only used for temporary purposes. So if you need to make the lights brighter, if you're driving at nighttime and you're far away from an exit on a highway and you need to illuminate that so you can see your exit and you don't miss that, you can push the handle forward and that would indicate the high beam setting. Then whenever you're done using those, you have to remember to turn those off because it could blind another driver and make it difficult for oncoming traffic. The other way you can use the high beam is by pulling the handle back to you. So if you were to pull it back towards you, you'll see it blink and it'll flash on and off. That is for communication purposes. If you see another driver trying to merge in front of you and you want to get their attention, you can pull the high beam back a few times, and it lets that driver understand that yes, you're giving them permission to be able to merge into traffic or to lane change, even for pedestrians to cross the street. So those are some of the different ways that you can use your high beam lights. The next thing is on the right, which is your windshield wipers. The windshield wiper handle is on the right. You would pull it downward and that turns it on to the highest level. We have different settings, so you got to make sure you pay close attention to the way that it's labeled on the handle. So we have high, then we have low. The next feature is called intermittence, and then we have the off setting. The intermittence section is where you can adjust the speed to a very slow speed, or you can sort of speed it up depending on how much rain or how much snow is falling at that time. So it's important to understand how that works because they can't spell out the word of intermittence on the handle. So they abbreviate it as INT. The next feature of that is called the mist. So if you were to push it upward, it would just move the windshield wipers one time, and that would be the mist. So if you hit a puddle and there's something that falls on your car, like bird mess or some mud from hitting a puddle and it gets onto the window, if you want to keep that clear, you can just push the mist button or the mist option at the top, and it'll move it from side to side. The other things are the center console. We have the center console where you can connect it with your cell phone. It has different features to it. We have a menu screen. We have an audio screen for different radio stations. We have Sirius XM radio in this car. You also have map capability, and we have different settings for Seek and for tracks and different things. If you have downloads, if you have books, like I listen to Audible, I can download a book through my phone, and then it will connect with the car, and I can skip through various tracks and find different chapters. Also, you can make phone calls, and you can download apps to this as well for the center console. But the main reason why we want to pay attention to this area is because it has a backup camera screen. So whenever the car is in reverse, we switch it to reverse and the camera screen will light up, or it'll come on automatically and give you a view of everything in back of you, so that way you don't bump into something and have a situation where you're backing up and you're unaware that someone's walking or passing by. So it could be anything. So we want to make sure we pay attention to the camera when we have the backup camera on, but you still have to check your side mirrors in every direction. And also I recommend looking over both shoulders as you're backing up whenever the car is in reverse. So it's important. And then we'll talk about that when we get into parallel parking. Next is your emergency signal. So we call it the four-way flashers. So this button is the indicator that you would press if you have any car trouble, if there's an emergency with your car, maybe there's some malfunction with your car, and you want to alert the people around you and other traffic. So when you put on the four ways, people can move around you, or they can come over and help you out if they see that the four ways are on. So that's important to understand. And there's other ways that you can use the four-way flashers, which we'll talk about those in the future. Okay, the air system is an important part of the vehicle because you want to make sure that you're comfortable, for one, and also your passengers, they can feel comfortable as well. Pennsylvania is a very seasonal state, so the weather can change at the drop of a dime. So you want to understand how to make changes to the interior and the temperature inside the car. So the first thing is that it has a cool side where you can adjust it to the left. If you rotate the dial to the left, it will make the temperature a lot cooler. If you rotate it to the right, then the temperature is going to move to the warmer temperature as you're making the adjustment. The other thing is, depending on the outside temperature, this car does have the capability of letting us have an outside temperature. So it tells us what it actually is, so we can adjust the number either above or below that temperature inside the vehicle. But the main thing is, for the air system, you need to understand how to operate the front and rear window defrost. The front window defrost works a little bit different because it blows air from the front area of the car onto the front windshield. If the windows are fogged up or they're hard to see through, this will help keep the windows clear from fog and moisture. Also for ice, if the windows had ice on them in the winter months, we could adjust it to a warmer temperature and direct it for the front window defrost. The rear window defrost, however, works a little bit different. It has lines on the back windshield from left to right, and some of the lines are from top to bottom. So as you look at the back window and you push the button that has rear underneath it, that will let us know that the rear defrost is on. So that way your rear window can become clear, and also it helps for visibility. So the next thing is the direction of the different vents and the airflow. Some people prefer the air flowing at the top of the car where the person is seated, and then also it would be directed towards your leg or your feet when you're in the car. So it has different options where you can switch through different settings. The other one that's most important is the air conditioning. So obviously we use that in the warmer months, so it's good to have a good working air conditioning system. You have to get it checked periodically just to make sure that it's blowing out the right amount of air, and also you have to change your air filters from time to time. Sometimes it's good to do it on a yearly basis. Depending on how old the car is, you might want to talk to your mechanic about how frequent you need to get it changed or checked. Next, the next important thing to remember as a new driver is to understand how to operate the gear shift in the car. This is an automatic car, so we'll be referring to automatic cars in this video. So it will refer to the different gear positions that you need. So the most obvious position when you're not moving is the park gear. So when the car is in park, that's when you want the car to stop and you don't want to move anymore. The next one is reverse. So when you switch the car to reverse, obviously that will move the car back. You need to make sure that your foot is on the brake pedal to be able to release the gear shift. It has a little button that you will push on the gear shift, and once you push that in, and move it back to the reverse gear. But at that point, when you lift your foot up off the brake, remember the car is going to move. So you want to do it a touch at a time so you can get a feel of the pressure on the brake pedal. Some cars require you to press harder on the brake. Some cars, if they're newer, they may have a more sensitive touch and it may brake suddenly. So you want to make sure you adjust that. It takes a few seconds to get a feel for that. The next gear is the neutral gear. Neutral is used for purposes if the car is not working for some reason, if the car is out of gas or there's some engine trouble and the car is not running, then you can switch it to neutral and we can push the car and be able to pull it over towards the side of the road so that way it can get towed to a repair shop. The next one is drive, and drive is the gear that we use most. So we're usually using our drive gear because we need to use the car so we can drive wherever we need to. And what I like about the drive gear, the gear allows the car to adjust and shift according to the engine, and it will be a lot smoother when you're in the drive gear. And it's a little different feel when you're in a stick shift because you have to actually manual shift through all the different gears. That's all for today's video, and thank you very much for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date and stay informed. Also, be sure to hit the notifications button as well and watch us in the future. Also, make sure that you drive safe and live better. That's all for now. Thank you.